So I know there are a lot of different fables and mythical creatures one could say that makes up Usopp's character, but another I think we could add to the list is Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, because out of all the renditions of Jack and the Beanstalk, there is one central theme that holds true. Magic beans are the origin point for the giant beanstalk's growth, right? What are pop greens but magic beans? Because you plant them in the ground and some large piece of flora pops out. So that's where I think pop greens come from initially. A different spin on the concept of magic beans. Now, taking that further, the beanstalk itself probably is just in Skypiea, because it's literally called Giant Jack, and that's a very obvious reference to Jack and the Beanstalk, even though it wasn't being used as a climbing point to fell a giant, but it was used as a climbing point to fell a false deity in a way, in the form of Eniru. So here's what I'm thinking. What if the pop greens and maybe even the Boing Archipelago itself are all just from Elbaf? So let's say, I don't know, somehow, some way, the Boing Archipelago comes from Elbaf and ends up in the sea somewhere. But in Elbaf, there are many, many, many Boing Archipelago in a lake or something somewhere. And that's where pop greens originate from. I could see that being a possibility, because it's too weird that the pop greens share so much in common with Jack's magic beans. And the reason why I bring Jack and the Beanstalk up, of course, is because a giant is seen as a main antagonist in Jack and the Beanstalk. Though where Usopp does differ from Jack is that instead of a giant being an enemy to Usopp, the giants are a bowstring for his dream to be a great warrior on the sea, as he looks up to Dory and Broggy quite fondly. So, with that being said, there's also the point too, you could say, that Usopp is the savior of giants, because he did save the captain of the new giant pirate Taurian from a fate of being a toy back in Dressrosa. So he is both an admirer of giants and a savior of giants. So with that being said, so in that way, Usopp is an inverse on Jack. Instead of killing giants, he both admires and saves giants. Another interesting twist that I think kind of brings all this together is that Skypiea, Elbaf, Little Garden, and the Boing Archipelago all have relations to explorers, because Lewis Arnott talks about Little Garden in the book called Bragman, and we see this when Little Garden is starting up. Then the same Lewis Arnott goes to Elbaf at some point. So that's very interesting. We find that out in 1132. Then another explorer, Montblanc Noland, finds Shandura when it was still on the Blue Sea. Shandura is knocked up into the sky by the knock-up stream. On top of being an explorer, Nolan is also a botanist, as he saved the people of Shandura with his knowledge of botany. He is from the North Blue, which is kind of interesting because Heracles, a fellow botanist, is from the South Blue. And even though he isn't an explorer exactly, he did set off with the intention to learn more about botany from his home in the South Blue, which then led him to the Boing Archipelago, which then killed all of his comrades. But out of it, he gained the knowledge of how to use pop greens, on top of, I guess, beast mastery, as he's able to command a bunch of giant insects, which is also very interesting and might bolster the claim that, yeah, the Boing Archipelago could be from Elbaf, because it attracts the same sort of fauna, I guess you could say, or has the same effect on the fauna in the area as the, I guess, the vegetation or flora of Elbaf has on its inhabitants, as we have seen a giant grasshopper in Elbaf, like we've seen a giant mantis and giant beetles come from the Boing Archipelago. So with that being said, this then leads into Usopp learning about botany from Heracles, who was sought out by Kuma due to his knowledge of botany, which is also a very interesting point. But yeah, that's how Usopp too becomes a botanist and he gets the knowledge of how to use these said magic beans, these pop greens, in combat. So, with that being said, that's all I have for today. So many mysteries to find in the land of Elbap. But with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. What's it?